Tien Cong Tran, Ph.D. The Diamond Sutra. The text. Arranged according to subjects. The Diamond Sutra. Prologue. 1. Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha stayed at Anathapindika's garden in Jita Grove in the kingdom of Sravasti, with 1,250 great bhikkhus. When the mealtime came, the Buddha put on his robe, took his bowl, and went into the great city of Sravasti, where he begged for food. After begging from door to door, he came back to his own place and took his meal. When this was done, he put away the robe and the bowl, washed his feet, spread his seat and sat down. 2. Then the elder Subhuti, who was among the assembly, rose from his seat, bared his right shoulder, knelt on his right knee, respectfully folded his hands and addressed the Buddha thus. World-honored one, it is wonderful to find someone like you. You mind the Bodhisattvas so much and instruct them so well. World-honored one, in case good men and good women raise the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment, how should they abide in it and how should they keep their thoughts under control? The Buddha said, well said, indeed, Subhuti. As you say, the thus reached one minds the Bodhisattvas very much and instructs them very well. But now listen attentively and I will tell you, in case good men and good women raise the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment, how they should abide in it and how they should keep their thoughts under control. So be it, world-honored one. I wish to listen to you. Section 1. Going to the other shore. 13. At that time, Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, what will this sutra be called and how should we hold it? The Buddha said to Subhuti, this sutra will be called the cutting off diamond gone to the other shore wisdom, and by this name you hold it. The reason is that, Subhuti, according to the Buddha's teaching, gone to the other shore wisdom is not gone to the other shore wisdom and therefore it is called gone to the other shore wisdom. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there anything which the thus reached one teaches? Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, the thus reached one has nothing to teach. Section 2. Inessentiality of material, no self. Supreme Perfect Enlightenment. 3. The Buddha said to Subhuti, the great Bodhisattvas should keep their thoughts under control as follows. All living beings, be they born from eggs, born from wombs, born from moisture, born from transmutation, be they material, immaterial, with thinking, without thinking, with neither thinking nor non-thinking, I must lead them to enter into the ultimate nirvana and to attain the final liberation. Though immeasurable, innumerable, unlimited beings are liberated, in reality no beings are liberated. Why, Subhuti? If a bodhisattva retains the idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul, he is indeed not a bodhisattva. 5. Subhuti, what do you think? Is it possible to recognize the thus reached one by means of bodily form? No, world-honored one. It is impossible to recognize the thus reached one by means of bodily form. Why? As the thus reached one says, a bodily form is not a bodily form. The Buddha said to Subhuti, all that has a form is illusory. When form is perceived as non-form, the thus reached one is recognized. 6. Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, in times to come, when people hear this teaching, will they have a true faith in it? The Buddha said to Subhuti, do not talk that way. 500 years after the passing of the thus reached one, there will be people who, having practiced rules of morality and thus done good deeds, happen to hear this teaching will rouse a true faith in it. Such people, as you know, have planted the root of their merit not only with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 Buddhas but with infinite thousands of myriads of Buddhas. Those who, hearing this teaching, rouse, for even 1 second, a pure and clear faith are all known to the thus reached one and recognized by him as having acquired an immeasurable amount of merit. Why? Because all these people are free from the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul. They are free from the idea of a thing as well as of a no thing. Why? Because if they cherish the idea of a thing, they are attached to a self, a person, a living being or a soul. If they cherish the idea of a no thing, they are attached to a self, a person, a living being or a soul. Therefore you should not cherish the idea of a thing, you should not cherish the idea of a no thing. For this reason, the thus reached one always teaches thus, O bhikkhus, know that my teaching is like a raft. Even a thing is cast aside, much more a no thing. 7. Subhuti, what do you think? Has the thus reached one attained the supreme perfect enlightenment? Does he have something to preach? Subhuti said, World-honored one, as I understand your teaching, there is no something called supreme perfect enlightenment nor is there any fixed doctrine for the thus reached one to preach. Why? Because the doctrine he preaches is ungraspable and unpreachable, it is neither a thing nor a no thing. How is it so? Because all wise men belong to non-doing and therefore they are distinct from one another. 8. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone fills the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious jewels and gives them away in charity, will not the merit he thus obtained be great? Subhuti said, very great, indeed, world-honored one. Why? Because his merit has the quality of non-merit, therefore the thus reached one speaks of the merit as being great. The Buddha said, if there is a person who holds even 1 gatha of 4 lines in this sutra, and preaches it to others, his merit will be superior to the one just mentioned. Because, Subhuti, all the Buddhas and their supreme perfect enlightenment come from this sutra. Subhuti, what is known as the teaching of the Buddha is not the teaching of the Buddha. 9. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a stream enterer think, I have obtained the fruit of stream entering? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because stream enterer means one who enters the stream, but in truth there is no entering here. A true stream enterer does not enter color, sound, smell, taste, touch an object. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a once returner think, I have obtained the fruit of once returning? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because once returner means one who goes and returns for once, but in truth there is no going and returning for once here, therefore he is called once returner. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a non-returner think, I have obtained the fruit of non-returning? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because non-returner means one who does not return, but in truth there is no non-returning here, therefore he is called non-returner. Subhuti, what do you think? Does an arhat think, I have obtained the fruit of arhatship? Subhuti said, no, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because there is not a thing to be called arhat. If, world-honored one, an arhat thinks I have obtained arhatship, this means that he is attached to the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul. World-honored one, you have often said that I am the foremost of those who have attained non-contentious absorption, that I am the foremost of those arhats who are liberated from unwholesome desires. But, world-honored one, I dwell in no thought that I have attained arhatship. If I did, you would not tell me, Subhuti, you are one who enjoys the life of a peaceful dwelling. Just because Subhuti is not at all attached to that life, he is said to be the one who enjoys the life of peaceful dwelling. 17. At that time, Subhuti said to the Buddha, World-honored one, may I ask you again? In case good men and good women ever raise the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment, how should they abide in it and how should they keep their thoughts under control? The Buddha replied, good men and good women who ever raise the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment should do it as follows. We must lead all living beings to the shore of liberation, but when all living beings have reached that shore, we do not see any living being is liberated. Why? Subhuti, if a bodhisattva is still attached to the idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul, he is not a bodhisattva yet. Why? Because, Subhuti, there is indeed nobody who is able to raise the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment. Subhuti, what do you think? In ancient times, when he was with Dipankara Buddha, did the thus reached one attain the supreme perfect enlightenment? No, world-honored one. According to what I understand from your teaching, the thus reached one, when living with Dipankara Buddha, did not attain what is called the supreme perfect enlightenment. The Buddha said, right you are. Right you are. There is nothing called the supreme perfect enlightenment that the thus reached one attains. If there was such a dharma, Dipankara Buddha would have not given me the prediction, in a future time you will become a Buddha called Shakyamuni. This prediction was made because there is, in fact, nothing that can be attained that can be called the supreme perfect enlightenment. Why is this? Because thus reached one, Tathagata, is the thusness, Tathata, of all things. If someone says that the thus reached one attains the supreme perfect enlightenment, he is wrong. There is nothing that can be attained that can be called the supreme perfect enlightenment. Subhuti, the Dharma that the thus reached one has attained as the supreme perfect enlightenment is neither real nor elusive. Therefore the thus reached one says that all things are Buddha things. Subhuti, what I call all things are, in fact, not things, and therefore they are called all things. Subhuti, that can be compared to a great human body. Subhuti said, what the thus reached one calls a great human body is, in fact, not a great human body, and therefore it is called a great human body. So it is, Subhuti, with the bodhisattvas. If a bodhisattva thinks, I will liberate all living beings, he is indeed not yet a bodhisattva. Why? Subhuti, there is no fixed thing called bodhisattva. Therefore the Buddha says all things are without a self, a person, a living being or a soul. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva thinks, I have to adorn a Buddha land, he is not yet a bodhisattva. Why? What the thus reached one calls adorning a Buddha land is not adorning a Buddha land and therefore it is called adorning a Buddha land. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva thoroughly understands non-self and non-thing, he is considered by the thus reached one as a true bodhisattva. 18. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one have the physical eye? Subhuti replied, yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one have the celestial eye? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one have the eye of insight? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one have the eye of wisdom? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one have the Buddha eye? Yes, world-honored one, he does. Subhuti, what do you think? Does the thus reached one say the grains of sand in the Ganges river are sand? Yes, world-honored one, the thus reached one says they are sand. Subhuti, what do you think? If there are as many Ganges rivers as there are the grains of sand in the Ganges river, and then if there are as many Buddha lands as there are the grains of sand in the Ganges rivers, are the Buddha lands many? Very many, world-honored one. The Buddha said, Subhuti, however many living beings there are in all these Buddha lands, the thus reached one knows all thoughts of those living beings. Why? Subhuti, the thus reached one teaches that all thoughts are not thoughts, and therefore they are called thoughts. Why? Subhuti, the past mind cannot be grasped, the present mind cannot be grasped and the future mind cannot be grasped. 20. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the thus reached one be seen by his complete physical body? No, world-honored one, the thus reached one cannot be seen by his complete physical body. Why? What the thus reached one calls a complete physical body is in fact not a complete physical body, and therefore it is called a complete physical body. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the thus reached one be seen by his complete bodily marks? No, world-honored one, the thus reached one cannot be seen by his complete bodily marks. Why? What the thus reached one calls the complete bodily marks are, in fact, not the complete bodily marks, and therefore they are called the complete bodily marks. 23. Furthermore, Subhuti, the Dharma that is unbiased, neither high nor low, is called the Supreme Perfect Enlightenment. Because if a person practices everything good without depending on the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul, he attains the Supreme Perfect Enlightenment. Subhuti, what is called good is not good, and therefore it is called good. 25. Subhuti, you should not think that the thus reached one has the idea, I will bring all living beings to enlightenment. Subhuti, you should not think so. Why? Indeed there is no living being that can be liberated by the thus reached one. If the thus reached one liberates beings, he is attached to the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul. Subhuti, the thus reached one says that a self is not a self, but an ordinary person thinks that there is a self. Subhuti, an ordinary person is not an ordinary person, and therefore he is called an ordinary person. 26. Subhuti, what do you think? Can the thus reached one be seen through his 32 marks? Yes, the thus reached one can be seen through his 32 marks. The Buddha said to Subhuti, if the thus reached one can be seen through his 32 marks, then a Chakravartin is also a thus reached one. Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, as I understand your teaching, the thus reached one cannot be seen through his 32 marks. At that time the world-honored one uttered the following stanzas. Those who see me through my colored form, and seek me through my voice, are traveling on a wrong way, and cannot see the thus reached one. 27. Subhuti, you should not think that the thus reached one has attained the Supreme Perfect Enlightenment without depending on his 32 marks. Subhuti, you should not think so. You should not think that a person who raises the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment must think all things are null. You should not think so. A person who raises the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment does not say all things are null. 29. Subhuti, if someone says that the thus reached one comes, goes, sits, and lies down, that person does not understand my teaching. Why? Because the thus reached one comes from nowhere, goes nowhere, therefore he is called the thus reached one. 31. If someone says that the Buddha teaches the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul, does that person understand my teaching? No, world-honored one, he does not. Why? What the thus reached one calls the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul is not the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul, and therefore it is called the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul. Subhuti, if someone raises the mind for reaching the supreme perfect enlightenment, he should know thus about things, should see thus about things, should believe thus about things. Subhuti, what the thus reached one calls the idea of a thing is not the idea of a thing, and therefore it is called the idea of a thing. 32. Subhuti, if there is a good man or a good woman who piles all the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious jewels and gives them in charity, and if there is a person who raises the mind to hold, recite, and expound to others this sutra or even a gatha of 4 lines of this sutra, the merit of the latter far exceeds that of the former. So how should we expound this sutra to others? We should not be caught up in form, but we should have insight into the thusness of things. Why? All existing things are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows. Like dew, like lightning. Look at them as such. Section 3. Giving in charity, merit, and preciousness of the sutra. 4. Furthermore, Subhuti, when a bodhisattva practices charity, he should not dwell on any idea, that is to say, he should not dwell on the idea of form to practice charity, nor should he dwell on the idea of a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch or an object. Subhuti, thus should a bodhisattva practice charity without dwelling on any idea of form. Why? When a bodhisattva practices charity without dwelling on any idea, his merit will be beyond measure and thought. Subhuti, what do you think? Can you measure the space extending eastward? No, world-honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, can you measure the space extending toward the south, the west, the north, above or below? No, world-honored one, I cannot. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva does not dwell on any idea when practicing charity, his merit is beyond measure like space. Subhuti, a bodhisattva should let his mind abide in my teaching. 11. Subhuti, regarding the grains of sand in the Ganges River, suppose there are as many Ganges rivers as those grains of sand, what do you think? Will not the grains of sand in all those rivers be many? Subhuti said, very many, indeed, world-honored one. Those Ganges rivers will be many, much more the grains of sand in those Ganges rivers. Subhuti, I would like to ask you now. If there is a good man or a good woman who fills the 3,000 chiliocosms, which are as many as the grains of sand in those Ganges rivers, with the 7 precious jewels and gives them all away in charity, will not this merit be very large? Subhuti said, very large, indeed, world-honored one. The Buddha said to Subhuti, if a good man or a good woman holds even one gatha of 4 lines in this sutra and expounds it to others, his or her merit will be superior to the one just mentioned. 12. Furthermore, Subhuti, wherever this sutra or even one gatha of 4 lines is preached, that place will be respected by all beings, men, gods, asuras, as if it were the Buddha's own Chaitya. If a land is so respected, how much more a person who holds and recites this sutra. Subhuti, you should know that such a person achieves the highest, foremost and most wonderful deed. Wherever this sutra is kept, that place is regarded as in it there is the presence of the Buddha or a venerable disciple of his. 15. Subhuti, if there is a good man or a good woman who in the morning by charity gives up his or her bodies as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges river, and again at noon by charity gives up his or her bodies as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges river, and again in the evening by charity gives up his or her bodies as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges river, and continues thus for countless thousands of ages, and if there is another person who, listening to this sutra, accepts it with a believing heart, the merit acquired by the latter far exceeds that of the former. How much more the merit of one who copies, holds, learns, recites, and expounds it to others. Subhuti, in sum, there is in this sutra immeasurable, infinite, and incomprehensible merit. The thus reached one has taught this sutra for those who have given rise to the mind of the great vehicle and the mind of the supreme vehicle. If there are persons who hold, recite, and expound this sutra to others, they are all recognized by the thus reached one and acquire immeasurable, infinite, and incomprehensible merit. Such persons carry the supreme perfect enlightenment attained by the thus reached one. Why? Subhuti, those who desire inferior doctrines are attached to the idea of a self, a person, a living being or a soul. They are not able to hear, hold, recite, and expound to others this sutra. Subhuti, wherever this sutra is kept, there all beings, persons, gods, asuras, come and worship it. That place is called a Buddha Chaitya, the temple of worship and offerings, where the devotees gather around, scatter flowers and burn incense. 16. Again, Subhuti, there will be some good men and good women who will be despised for their holding and reciting this sutra. This is due to the evil karma of their impure deeds of their past lives, but because they are despised in the present life, the evil karma of their past lives will be destroyed, and they are able to attain the supreme liberation. Subhuti, as I remember, in my past lives innumerable ages ago, when I was with Dipankara Buddha, I met 84,000 multi-millions of the Buddhas and I made offerings to them and respectfully served them all, none of them was passed by me. If again, at the time of the collapse of the Dharma, there is a person who holds and recites this sutra, his merit exceeds 100,000 10 million times the merit I acquired. His merit is beyond calculation, beyond comparison. Subhuti, if at the time of the collapse of the Dharma, there are good men and good women who hold and recite this sutra, the merit they acquire goes beyond calculation. If I enumerate it in detail, those who listen to me will lose their heads and become suspicious and disbelieving. They cannot believe in the incomprehensible meaning of this sutra as well as in the incomprehensible rewards of the holding and reciting this sutra. 19. Subhuti, what do you think? If someone fills the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious jewels, and then gives them in charity, would his merit be much? World-honored one, his merit would be very much. Subhuti, if that merit was really much, the thus reached one would not say, it would be much. Because that merit is not real, the thus reached one says, it would be much. 24. Subhuti, if someone fills the 3,000 chiliocosms with the 7 precious jewels as high as Mount Sumeru, and then gives them away in charity, his merit will not compare to 100th part, 1,000th part, 1,000,000,000th part, an incalculable part of the merit of someone who holds, recites, and expounds to others this cutting off diamond gone to the other shore wisdom sutra. 28. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva piles up the 7 precious jewels, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges river, in all the 3,000 chiliocosms and gives them in charity, his merit will be inferior to the merit of a bodhisattva who recognizes and believes that all things are selfless and do not possess their own essence. Why is that, Subhuti? Because bodhisattvas do not seek for the rewards of merit. Subhuti asked, World-honored one, why do bodhisattvas not seek for the rewards of merit? Subhuti, a bodhisattva who acquires merit is not caught in the idea of merit. That is the reason why the thus reached one says that bodhisattvas do not seek for the rewards of merit. Section 4. Dialectics. From this shore to the other shore. 10. The Buddha said to Subhuti, Subhuti, what do you think? When the thus reached one was with Dipankara Buddha in the past, did he attain anything on the way of truth? No, world-honored one, he did not. The thus reached one while with Dipankara Buddha did not attain anything on the way of truth. Subhuti, what do you think? Does a bodhisattva adorn a Buddha land? No, world-honored one, he does not. Why? Because adorning a Buddha land is not adorning a Buddha land, and therefore it is called adorning a Buddha land. So Subhuti, all bodhisattvas should give rise to such a pure mind. They should not give rise to a mind dwelling on any idea of color, they should not dwell on the idea of sound, smell, taste, touch and object, they should not dwell on the idea of anything whatsoever. Subhuti, if someone were to have a body as large as Mount Sumeru, what do you think, would this body be very large? Subhuti said, very large, indeed, world-honored one. Why? Because the Buddha teaches that what is not a body is known as a large body. 13. The Buddha said to Subhuti, this sutra will be called the cutting off diamond gone to the other shore wisdom, and by this name you hold it. The reason is that, Subhuti, according to the Buddha's teaching, gone to the other shore wisdom is not gone to the other shore wisdom and therefore it is called gone to the other shore wisdom. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there anything which the thus reached one teaches? Subhuti said to the Buddha, world-honored one, the thus reached one has nothing to teach. Subhuti, what do you think? Are there many dust particles in the 3,000 chiliocosms? Subhuti said, very many, world-honored one. Subhuti, the thus reached one teaches that all dust particles are not dust particles and therefore they are called dust particles. He teaches that all chiliocosms are not chiliocosms and therefore they are called chiliocosms. Subhuti, what do you think? Is the thus reached one to be recognized through the 32 marks? No, world-honored one, he is not. The thus reached one is not to be recognized through the 32 marks, because what the thus reached one calls the 32 marks are not marks and therefore they are called the 32 marks. Subhuti, if there is a good man or a good woman who gives away his or her lives as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges river, his or her merit thus gained does not exceed that of one who knows how to hold and teach even one gatha of 4 lines of this sutra. 14. At that time Subhuti, listening to the sutra and understanding deeply its meaning, and filled with tears of gratitude, said to the Buddha, it is wonderful, indeed, world-honored one, that the Buddha teaches us a sutra full of deep meaning. Such a sutra has never been heard by me, even with the eye of wisdom acquired in my past lives. World-honored one, if there is a person who listens to this sutra and acquires a pure faith in it, he will have a true insight. He is known as having achieved the most wonderful virtue. World-honored one, what is known as true insight is not true insight, and therefore it is called true insight. World-honored one, it is not difficult for me to believe, to understand, and to hold this sutra, but in the ages to come, in the next 500 years, if there are persons who listen to this sutra, then believe, understand and hold it, they will belong to the most rare persons. Why? For they do not have any idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul. For what reason? The idea of a self is not an idea, the idea of a person, a living being or a soul is not an idea. For what reason? They are Buddhas who are free from all kinds of ideas. The Buddha said to Subhuti, "It is just as you say. If there is a person who, listening to this sutra, is neither frightened nor disturbed, he must be an extremely rare person." Why? Subhuti, the thus reached one teaches that the highest gone to the other shore wisdom is not the highest gone to the other shore wisdom, and therefore it is called the highest gone to the other shore wisdom. Subhuti, the thus reached one teaches that the gone to the other shore patience is not the gone to the other shore patience, and therefore it is called the gone to the other shore patience. Why? Subhuti, when, anciently, my body was cut into pieces by the king of Kalinga, I did not have any idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul. Why? Because when my body was cut into pieces, if I had had any idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul, I would have felt anger and ill will. Subhuti, I remember, in my past 500 lifetimes, I was a patient sage and, during those times, I had no idea of a self, a person, a living being, or a soul. Subhuti, you should detach yourself from all ideas and rouse the desire for the supreme perfect enlightenment. You should nourish the ideas that do not dwell on color, you should nourish the ideas that do not dwell on sound, smell, taste, touch or object. Whatever thought you may have, it should not dwell on anything. If a thought dwells on anything, this dwelling is not dwelling. Therefore, the Buddha teaches that when a bodhisattva practices charity, he should not dwell on anything. Subhuti, the reason a bodhisattva practices charity is to benefit all beings. The thus reached one teaches that all ideas are not ideas, and again all beings are not beings. Subhuti, the thus reached one is the one who speaks of things as they are, the one who speaks what is true, the one who speaks in accordance with reality, the one whose words are truthful, the one who does not speak falsehood, and the one whose words are not equivocal. Subhuti, the Dharma attained by the thus reached one is neither truth nor falsehood. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva practices charity while nourishing an idea relying on a thing, he is like someone walking in the dark and seeing nothing. If a bodhisattva practices charity while not nourishing an idea relying on a thing, he is like someone walking with eyes in the sunlight and seeing all kinds of shapes and colors. Subhuti, if in times to come good men and good women hold and recite this sutra, they will be seen and recognized by the thus reached one by his Buddhan knowledge, and they will acquire immeasurable and infinite merit. 21. Subhuti, you should not say that the thus reached one has the idea that I teach the Dharma. You should not think so. Why? Whoever says that the thus reached one has the Dharma to teach slanders the Buddha because he does not understand my teaching. Subhuti, the teaching of the Dharma is indeed not the teaching of the Dharma, and therefore it is called the teaching of the Dharma. At that time Subhuti asked, if in the future there are living beings who hear this sutra, will they believe in it? The Buddha said, Subhuti, those living beings are neither living beings nor non-living beings. Why? Subhuti, what the thus reached one calls living beings are truly not living beings. 22. Subhuti asked the Buddha, World-honored one, is there, in the supreme perfect enlightenment the thus reached one has attained, nothing to be attained? The Buddha said, it is so, Subhuti. I have attained nothing in the supreme perfect enlightenment, and therefore it is called the supreme perfect enlightenment. 30. Subhuti, if a good man or a good woman grinds the 3,000 chiliocosms into dust particles, do you think there would be many of these particles? World-honored one, there would be many dust particles. Why? If these dust particles were real, then the Buddha would not say they would be the dust particles. What the Buddha calls the dust particles are not dust particles, and therefore they are called the dust particles. World-honored one, what the thus reached one calls the 3,000 chiliocosms are not the 3,000 chiliocosms, and therefore they are called the 3,000 chiliocosms. Why? If the chiliocosms were real, they would be compounds of the dust particles. What the thus reached one calls a compound is not a compound, therefore it is called a compound. Subhuti, what is called a compound is only a conventional way of speaking. It is not real. Only an ordinary person is caught up in conventional words. Epilogue 32. After the Buddha had spoken this sutra, the elder Subhuti, the monks, the nuns, the laymen, the laywomen, and all worlds with their gods, humans and asuras rejoiced greatly, believed it, and accepted it to heart to practice it.